Good morning, everyone. This is our first session of this coffee break series. To get started, please refer to your screen for some information. Just FYIs, my dear participants, for concerns and inquiries, you may reach us through the following information present in your screen. It contains NCRDEC's contact number, only mobile phone, my dear participants, and several email addresses. We are also visible on social networking sites. On Facebook, we are at NCRDEC Philippines. In addition to our newest platform, we are on live at YouTube via NC. Again, participants, my name is JP Magnawa from the College of Economics, Management, and Development Studies of Cavite State University, which will serve as your moderator for the rest of the series. I would like to acknowledge some of our participants present today. From the academic sector, I would like to acknowledge our participants. First, from Benguet State University. Second, Cagayan State University. Third, of course, Cavite State University. Fourth, Mindanao State University in Sulu. Nueva Ecija University of Science and Technology. Palawan State University, Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Quirino State University, Silliman University in Dumaguete, University of Santo Tomas, University of the Philippines, Diliman, University of the Philippines at Los Baños, University of the Philippines, Manila, and lastly, University of the Philippines, Open University. From our people's organization and/or non-governmental organizations and other allied organizations, I would like to acknowledge present with us here today, Mr. TJ Ryan, Chief of Party from ACDIVOCA. Good morning, sir. Second, Philippine Association of Food Technologists. With us today, the director of the said organization. And lastly, the chairman of Samahan Magkakape ng Lipa. Hello po, ma'am, sir. From our third sector, the private organizations, I would like to acknowledge the following. AutoKid, Kabalen Group of Companies, Cadmus Science Industries Incorporated, CMMI, DLA Naturals Incorporated, Henry & Sons Trading and Manufacturing Company Incorporated, Cape Lorenzo, Mabuhay Interflower Mill Incorporated, Magsaysay Maritime Corporation, Rising Tiger Enterprises, R&R Food Products, Seda Hotel, and Tonic Philippines. And lastly, of course, from these government agencies present with us, the Bureau of Plant Industry, BPI, the Department of Education, and the LGU Cabarogis Quirino. Again, thank you, our dear participants present with us today. To officially first things first, participants, webinar house rules and guidelines. First, Please be informed that this webinar session will be recorded. Any violation of the Data Privacy Act of 2012 is not intended. Second, the audio and video of the participants, other than the speaker and the host, will be turned off. Of course, there will be a short break after the lecture. Kindly utilize the chat box to raise questions and concerns. If you are to address your concern to a fellow attendee, you may send a direct message so that you can then send it as a message to everyone. Fifth, sixth, questions will be entertained at the end of the lecture. However, attendees will still be allowed to raise questions during the lecture proper through our chat box here in Webex. Kindly take a moment to evaluate the activity upon the end of the session. The link information of the evaluation form will be provided in the chat box later. The certificate of participation will be sent to your email upon submission of the evaluation form. Lastly, should you be able to attend the 9 sessions, a certificate of completion will be provided. Of course, the same guidelines goes to the viewers of our FB live streaming. However, only the attendees who joined via Cisco Webex will be provided with certificate of participation. Questions, of course, will be entertained at the end of the lecture. To grace our activity, our dear participants, let us first start to grace this activity with a prayer, which will be coming from one of our NCRDEC staff, Mr. Mawel Villanueva. Mr. Mawel.
Given upon each of us. Lord, we pray for this country. Enlighten our leaders to do the right decision to respond to this pandemic. Please heal the hearts of the families devastated by this pandemic. Lord, we pray that everyone will stay healthy to resist this virus. Always protect our frontliners, elderly persons, and those who are vulnerable. Lord, we pray that you protect the families of the staffs and the participants of this webinar. As we start this webinar series, we ask that you would open our hearts and our minds so that we may hear your voice and have your eternal wisdom. Open our spirits so that we may know your guidance, and open our hearts so that we may receive your wonderful love. Lord, we thank you for the speakers and facilitators. We pray that you would give them great inspirations as they share with us what you have placed in their heart. We pray that you would fill them with courage and give them your peace. We ask this all in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Mawel. I would like to acknowledge the National Coffee Research Development and Extension Center Director, NCRDEC, Engineer Jerry M. Castillo, to give us today's welcome remarks. Sir Jerry.
Good day, Kapamilya. As we are on our way to transition to the new normal, it is with great pride to launch a virtual version of our coffee break, which stands for Breakthroughs on Research and Extension for the Advancement of Knowledge of the Stakeholders. So on behalf of the NCRDEC team, we would like to welcome you on this coffee break webinar series, and we promise that we will help you in building a long-lasting relationship with coffee, as the plant, as a beverage, and as an industry. We have prepared a handful of discussions for all of you, which will be presented by equally effective and esteemed speakers in the next 6 months. So hold your caps and get ready to sip in the bold and rich learnings on coffee from history to production, processing, business, and health. By conducting this webinar series, what we're offering you are not just learnings, but we're also offering partnerships. Individually, each of us may be called as a coffee drinker, as a coffee shop owner, coffee farmer, coffee researcher, but together, we are the industry. So thank you for supporting this webinar series, and it's with great hope that our partnership will be as strong as the freshly brewed Kapeng Barako. Have a good day ahead and stay safe, Kapamilya.
And now, to our main course of today's coffee break session, I would like to introduce to you our speaker. Our speaker for today is currently an Associate Professor 5 at Cavite State University, and she as a former director of NCRDEC, or the National Coffee Research Development Extension Center. She has numerous publications on genetics and biotechnology in both local and international journals. Meanwhile, her studies on coffee had also been presented in local and international conferences. One of the studies she led entitled Conservation and Management of the Philippine Coffee Genetic Resources, which had bagged awards from various, again, national and regional conferences. Let us now give her a virtual applause to Dr. Miriam Du Baltazar. Hello?
Hi. Hello, JP. Narinig na ako? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, so, okay. So, good morning po sa ating lahat. Salamat, JP. And, yeah, good morning to all our researchers, coffee farmers, first, nursery owners. Sabi ng ating organizers, meron tayo mga nursery owners. We also have, of course, good morning po sa lahat ng mga coffee drinkers. No? Pwede po bang pasip muna ng konting kape? Okay, so, sabi nga po ng ating organizer, we have a very diverse audience. So, from researchers to farmers, to nursery owners, and many others. And also, nanggaling pa po pala sa iba't ibang lugar ng Pilipinas. And I think we have one foreigner from I think from the US. I think KJ Ryan is here. So good morning po sa ating lahat. Okay? So I'll be discussing a very technical presentation, but of course the challenge to me now is how to make it not too technical to be understood by everybody. Okay? So can I share that with PowerPoint? Ayan. So, ako po si Miriam Baltasar. Ako po ay isang guro at mananaliksik po dito sa Cavite State University. So, okay, to start with, so this slide just show us the process of producing a coffee beverage. So, well, it's a very complex process, but it only tells us that the coffee drink that we enjoy. Saglit lang po, tanggalin ko lang po ito nagpapakaw. Okay. So, the beverage, coffee that we enjoy every day comes from the coffee plant, okay? That is, whose fruits are harvested and processed, and yeah, we have a cup of coffee. So, the coffee beverage has a very stimulating effect because of its caffeine and the metabolites that it contains. So, coffee, for us Filipinos, coffee is our way of commune, po ba? And also, coffee is our way of socialization, it's our way of relaxation. In fact, I'm drinking coffee right now para po ma-relax kasi mas nakakakaba po pala yung webinar kasi the world is looking at me, or looking at us. Ayan. So, there may be some of you who are already well-versed with coffee, and maybe some of you are just beginning to learn about coffee. But there are some things we know to be true about coffee. For example, coffee is the second most heavily traded commodity in the world. Okay? And that we know that there are four varieties of coffee in the Philippines. So, Coffea arabica, Coffea robusta, Coffea liberica, Coffea excelsa are the four species of commercially cultivated coffee in the Philippines. And when we say brewed coffee, we are referring to kapeng barako or anything that's not instant, it's kapeng barako. And also we know that research is very indispensable in creating new knowledge as well as validating existing ones. Okay? So let's take a look at the first truth that we know. Okay? The second most valuable commodity in international trade. So we know this is true because even the most popular media in the United States, the Wall Street Journal, said that coffee is the second most widely traded commodity after oil. And also, even the top official of Starbucks declared that coffee is the world's second most traded commodity after oil. So she was invited in 2017 to give a statement in a particular ceremony, and that's what her statement. So we know it's true because even if we look at Google Scholar, Google Scholar is a database of scientific publications. So it says that coffee is the second largest traded commodity in the world next to oil. In fact, I myself use this statement in my seminars, in my talks, and even in submitting research proposal for possible funding. Sinasabi ko yun, coffee is the second most heavily traded commodity next to oil. Okay? Well, in fact, okay, if we are to look at the statistics by the Food and Agriculture Organization, in fact, when we say international trade, we need to look at export value generally. So it eliminates domestic consumption. And coffee, we have been the most heavily traded commodity sometime in 1955, right? 1955 to 1959. But in this figure, we can see that after 1955 to 1979, coffee also became the second most heavily traded commodity. That was in around 1977. And briefly a decade after, it also became the second most heavily traded commodity. So, however, the statement that coffee is the second most heavily traded commodity, as you can see in this figure, should not be used at all times because it's inaccurate and irrelevant. So it's inaccurate because it's no longer true, and it's irrelevant because it doesn't give meaningful insights. So it depends on expert value, and it doesn't consider, as I had said a while ago, it doesn't consider the domestic consumption. So, what we can say to be true is that, well, as you can see, there are so many commodities, agricultural commodities that already exceeded coffee, such as soybeans, wheat, maize, soybean meal, cotton, and even wool. So, therefore, we shouldn't keep advocating this. And we should also correct that coffee is the second most heavily traded commodity in the world. But instead, what we can say true today is that coffee is one of the several agricultural commodities that are widely traded. Okay? So I think ako mismo na-correct with this oftentimes statement that I use in my research proposal and even in my scientific reports. So there are four varieties of coffee. Coffea arabica, Coffea robusta, Coffea liberica, Coffea excelsa are the first species of commercially cultivated coffee in the Philippines. So are these facts? Facts po ba mga to? So, yes, we know they are facts because when we ask Google about it, Google is very confident to say that there are 4 varieties of coffee in the Philippines. Kita niyo po yun, ang napakalaki. Ang tanong ko dito, how many varieties of coffee in the Philippines? Sabi niya, there are 4 varieties of coffee in the Philippines. So, when we say plant variety, this is described by the International Union for the Plant Protection of New Varieties, or UPOV. A plant variety represents a more precisely defined group of plants selected from within a species with a common set of characteristics. Okay? So, looking at the database of the same organization, or UPOV, we can say that there are more than 4 varieties of coffee listed in their website. And in fact, this graph shows us the number of protected varieties from 1999 to 2018. And in 2018, it says that there are 60 varieties, protected varieties of coffee all over the world. Okay? And in the Philippines, the National Seed Industry Council, which is the government agency responsible for approving or for the registration of varieties. So at the website of NCRDEC, we can see that there are 26 varieties of registered or approved varieties in the Philippines. And what are they? 7 of these are Arabica, then 18 of these are Robusta, and there's only one registered Liberica, which is the CVSU NCRDEC Liberica, and no Excelsa at the moment is approved for production. So, okay. Even the World Coffee Research, it's an international organization devoted to coffee research. It says, they publish a catalog of Arabica coffee varieties describing 54 of them. So, how then can we say that there are 4 varieties of coffee in the Philippines? Okay, so examples of Arabica varieties are, well, some of the registered Arabica varieties are Arabica 1, Arabica 2, the Cut-Out, Red Bourbon, Red Catura, Yellow Bourbon from UPI. We also have non-registered varieties, yung Granica, Tipica, many of you are familiar with this. Of course, Geisha, the most expensive coffee variety in the world, Koana Coffee, Mocha, Pacamara, Mundo Novo, and many others. So, with this, okay, so with this, we can see that there are more than 4 varieties of coffee in the Philippines, at least in the Philippines. Okay, so what about the species? What are the species of coffee in the Philippines, of commercially cultivated coffee in the Philippines? So, when we look at databases on plant names and scientific names, you can see a lot. But there's this one organization that is responsible for describing what are the accepted scientific names of different plants. And this is the International Plant Name Index. And according to IPNI, okay, the scientific names of the cultivated species of coffee in the Philippines are, for Arabica, it's Coffea arabica. For Robusta that we know, it's Coffea canephora. So it's not Coffea robusta. So Coffea canephora is known as Conilon coffee in Brazil, but it is known as Robusta elsewhere. So I myself has been using Coffea robusta previously, but well, of course, upon consulting scientific literatures, now we know that the scientific name of Robusta is Coffea canephora. Okay, and also we have very popular types of coffee in the Philippines, the Liberica and Excelsa. So the scientific name of Liberica is Coffea liberica, variety Liberica, and Coffea liberica, variety Duivray for the Excelsa. So many scientists, or there are some scientists and some publications that claim that Liberica and Excelsa are not varieties of Liberica, of Coffea liberica, but they are subspecies of the species Coffea liberica. So, parang sa rice, I give rice as my example kasi yun po yung dati kong ginagawa. So, sa rice, Oryza sativa, subgroup Japonica. So, ito po yung mga Japonica rice or Japanese rice. And we have Oryza sativa, subgroup Indica. So, ito yung long grain rice, which is yung common sa ating mga Pinoy. So, whether the two are, they belong to the same species or not, or pareho silang mga varieties or not, what is clear is that the two are very distinct from each other. Okay? So, currently, there are 124 species under...
Naka-enter ako.
Pwede po bang pakimute natin? Okay, so there are 124 species of coffee. And did you know that the genus Silanthus, there are 11 species of the genus Silanthus, which is a very closely related, which used to be a closely related genus of coffee. It was already subsumed to coffee in 2016. So currently, there are now 124 species under the genus Coffea. Okay? Yeah. So, I think it's better to say that there are many varieties of coffee in the Philippines, and 26 of them are registered or approved. And also, the scientific name of the cultivated coffee in the Philippines are Coffea arabica, Coffea canephora, Coffea liberica, variety liberica, and not Coffea excelsa, but Coffea liberica, variety liberica. Okay? Okay, so what about yung tinatawag nating kapeng barako? Okay? Kapeng barako refers to brewed coffee. When we go to Benguet, sasabihin nila sa amin, uy, meron kaming kapeng barako, inom kayo. So when we go to Davao, sabi, uy, inom kayo ng kapeng barako. So anything that is not instant is kapeng barako. Okay? And of course, we also know that research is indispensable in creating new knowledge as well as validating ones. So actually 3 weeks ago, meron po tayong very passionate farmer from Batangas, and I think he's listening right now. And sabi niya, ang kapeng barako ay excelsa and liberica. However, sa amin po sa NCRDEC, it has been handed to us that kapeng barako is the true liberica, the Coffea liberica, variety liberica. And he actually challenged me, sabi niya, ma'am, why not look at scientific literatures telling us the etymology of kapeng barako? So medyo napaisip ako, oo nga naman no, bakit ko nga ba laging ginagamit yung kapeng barako as the Coffea liberica variety liberica and without any basis of it. So I tried looking for scientific literatures and wala po talaga akong nakita na journal article published describing the etymology of kapeng barako in the Philippines. However, I have seen scientific publications such as books that tell us what is kapeng barako, saan ba ito nagmula or ano bang ibig sabihin nito. So, there is this book known as, many botanists are familiar with this, the CRC World Dictionary of Medicinal Plants, Medicinal and Poisonous Plants. Specifically, Volume 5 tells us the common names, the scientific names, the synonyms, and even the etymology of different medicinal and poisonous plants. And what can we see in page 710 of this? So we can see, masyado po itong maliit, but if we are to zoom it out, we can see that Coffea liberica and also synonymous to Coffea liberica variety delivery, it says that in the Philippines, it's known as kapeng barako. Okay? So, ibig sabihin nito, yung liberica at saka yung si delivery ay tinatawag na kapeng barako. And kung mapapansin po natin, in Indonesia, it tells us that yung kanyang pangalan is Coffee Nangka. So, napaka-significant po nitong Coffee Nangka na to. Kasi po, when we ask, currently wala pa pong description on the cup profiles ng Liberica at saka ng Excelsa. However, if we ask some certified cuppers, when we say certified cuppers, they are trained cuppers of coffee. And they would always tell us that Excelsa is kasing meron po siyang jackfruity or langka aftertaste. So, with this, we can say that either Liberica and Excelsa are referred to as Kapeng Barako. So sabi ko, what about other books? What do they tell us about Kapeng Barako? So I tried looking at another books, and this one, the Plant Resources of Tropical Africa. So Tropical Africa is, well, this is where our coffee came from, specifically in Ethiopia. So Volume 1, The Medicinal Plants. Ano nga ba ang sinasabi ng book na to? So if you are to look at it, so Coffea liberica and Coffea excelsa, although this is not the accepted scientific name, but it's a synonym of the Coffea liberica variety delivery, we can see that both of them are known as Kapeng Barako. So therefore, ako mismo is corrected when I say that Kapeng Barako is the true liberica, the Coffea liberica variety liberica. So with these two books, we can say that Kapeng Barako refers to both Excelsa and Liberica. And I am really thankful to the samahan ng magkakape ng Lipa Batangas, because they really challenged me to look at what is Kapeng Barako. Okay? And also, there's another book. This is also very popular to botanists and agriculturists, yung Prosea. Prosea, or the Plant Resources of Southeast Asia. And as you can see, Coffea liberica, okay, at yung synonym niya, Coffea de Weber, Coffea excelsa, are also known as Kapeng Barako. So, with this, we can say that Kapeng Barako refers to both Excelsa and Liberica. And of course, Kapeng Barako is not brewed coffee. It's not instant coffee. Okay? So, well, Kapeng Barako is or refers to Excelsa and Liberica coffee. So, ayun po, we know also that research is indispensable in creating new knowledge as well as validating existing ones. And, yeah.
Wait lang po. Hello, Jade?
Ma'am, yes?
Naririnig ako?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you, ma'am, clearly.
Okay, sige. I don't know what happened.
It's
Basta
all right,
na-
no?
Okay. So, basta na lang
Yes,
ako
ma'am.
nawala. Oo.
Yes.
Yun. So, pasensya na po, salita ako ng salita kanina. And ito na nga. Saan po ba tayo nagtapos? Okay? I think we were here. Okay. So, we did a research on determining the traits that can be used for the quick identification of coffee plants. So sabi ko nga kanina, napakarami pong nagtatanong, especially in a particular FB group. Marami po akong nakikitang post doon na they post a picture of coffee plant and sasabihin nila, pa-ID naman po. Pasabi naman po kung anong klase ng kape ito. And so I hope those who are posting such are here listening to this webinar. So we observed 20 traits, and that includes the whole coffee plant, the fruits of the plant, and of course the flowers as well as the leaves. So almost all parts of the coffee plant has been investigated. And then these traits were, the data sa traits na to were uploaded in the computer, and we ran through particular software known as the NTCs. And through the NTC software, makikita kung siya ay are the traits effective in identifying the different types of coffee. And of course, after that, we run that in, we look at the literatures. We validated them through literatures. So, ano ba yung mga traits that are very important in classifying coffee? Okay. So, kung mapapansin po natin, so, sensya na. So, we consider ano ba yung mga traits that are effective in classifying our coffee. So, we look at the overall leaf orientation of the plants. And kung mapapansin niyo po, dito po sa taas na figure, all the leaves are upright in orientation. So, pataas po lahat yung kanilang mga leaves. And on the contrary, the leaves of the figure of the coffee plant dito sa baba, pabagsak lahat yung kanilang mga leaves. And this is a very effective in classifying our coffee or in identifying our coffee. So, we also look at the leaves, different traits sa leaves, such as yung texture, whether it's leathery or coriaceous or non-leathery. And we also look at the margin or kung yung margin ba niya ay wavy or hindi wavy. We also look at the size, kung halatang-halata na malaki yung kanyang leaves or masyadong maliit yung kanyang leaves. And of course, we look at the leaf index. The leaf index basically is the ratio of the length over the width of the leaves, and it tells us whether our leaf is narrow or broad. Okay? Okay. So, of course, we also look at the flowers. And the number of inflorescence is a very important or significant trait in classifying our coffee. So, the inflorescence or ito yung kumpol ng mga bulaklak. So, inflorescence is the group of flowers. So, we look at the number of flowers in a node, but we did not find it significant. What we found significant is the number of kumpol or the number of inflorescence in the leaf. Because it tells us, okay, the flowers would tell us the clustering of our fruits. So yung clustering ba ng mga fruits ng coffee plant ay highly clustered or they appear as they appear singly along the nodes of the coffee plant. Okay. So, okay. So, ano ba yung mga na-observe namin? With respect to the overall leaf orientation, we found out that both Arabica and Robusta have drooping or downward leaf orientation. And mapapansin po natin na itong Arabica na to is drooping, however, medyo pa-slant ng konti yung pagbagsak ng kanyang mga dahon. With respect to Robusta, many Robusta accessions have slanting or oblique yung kanyang pagpabagsak, pero marami din sa mga Robusta ay vertically drooping. Okay? So, what about Excelsa and Liberica? So, with the 150 Excelsa that we have in the field and around 24 Liberica, we found out that all of them have upright leaf orientation. So, pataas po lahat yung mga leaves ng Excelsa and ng Liberica. Okay. So, what about the leaves? The leaves, as you can see, napakaganda po ng picture na to. Tuwang-tuwa po ako dito. Kinuha po ng isa sa aming mga RA. And as you can see, the leaf margin can be used to distinguish. Arabica and Robusta are wavy, medyo nagwi-wave yung margins ng kanilang leaves. And on the other hand, the Liberica and Excelsa do not have wavy, or we term that as entire leaf margin. What about the texture? Okay. So with regards to texture, we also found this very discriminating between Robusta and Arabica. Yung Robusta, yung size ng leaves niya ay kitang-kitang mas malaki siya kaysa sa leaves ng Arabica. And on the other hand, yung texture ng leaves ng Robusta ay hindi siya leathery. Other term for leathery is coriaceous. So, hindi siya leathery. Manipis yung kanyang leaves. Okay? And with regards to the leaf index, we found out that Liberica has a very narrow leaf while Excelsa has a very broad leaf. So yun po, nakakatuwa po ito kasi magagamit po natin ito sa pag-identify po ng coffee. Okay, so what about the number of inflorescence? The number of inflorescence in Arabica, Robusta, and Excelsa ay napakadami. So more than 7. But in Liberica, iilan lamang po yun. 4, 3, 4, 2, sometimes 1. So dito pa lang po sa pictures na to, makita natin na kumpul-kumpul, napakadami yung inflorescence po ng ating Excelsa, Arabica, and Robusta. So the inflorescence or the flowers will tell us the clustering of our fruits. And it follows that yung Arabica natin, Robusta, and Excelsa are highly clustered. And on the other hand, our Liberica are or appear singly along the nodes of the coffee plant or hindi sila kumpul-kumpul. Okay? So again, these are very significant in identifying our coffee. Okay, so another trait that we found to be very important is the size of the fruits, the size or the volume of the fruits. So we can see that Liberica fruits or cherries are remarkably big. So very noticeable yung pagiging malaki ng mga cherries ng ating Liberica. On the other hand, yung Arabica, Robusta, and Excelsa, hindi sila masyadong nagkakalayo sa size ng kanilang mga fruits or ng kanilang mga cherries. Okay? So, with that, we tried summarizing ano ba yung mga characteristics ng ating mga types of coffee. So, with Arabica, yung kanyang leaves, yung kanyang overall leaf orientation is drooping, but most of them are oblique or paislant. And then yung leaves niya are wavy, glossy, and coriaceous or leathery. And the leaves are smaller than Robusta. So si Robusta naman po, katulad siya ni Arabica, that the leaves, the overall orientation of the leaves are drooping, but most of them are oblique. Drooping oblique or sometimes drooping vertical. So the leaf margins are wavy, pero yung kanilang mga texture are non-glossy or non-leathery. And if we are to compare the size of the leaves of Robusta and Arabica, malaki, kitang-kita na mas malaki yung leaves ng Robusta. Okay? So, what about the leaves of Liberica and Excelsa? Both Liberica and Excelsa have upright, pataas lahat yung kanilang leaves. And on the other hand, both of them have non-wavy or entire leaf margin. But to distinguish the two, yung Liberica, very narrow yung kanyang leaves, while Excelsa, kitang-kita na napaka-broad ng kanilang mga dahon. Ayan. So, what about the flowers? Alam niyo, nakakatuwa po kasi para lang po ma-ascertain namin yung number of inflorescence, we have 3-year period observing yung number of inflorescence ng aming Liberica and Excelsa. And with regards to this, Arabica, Robusta, and Liberica and Excelsa have high number of inflorescence per node. But Liberica consistently give a very low number of inflorescence per node. So that's why sinasabi po ng ating mga farmers, especially po yung mga taga Batangas, sasabihin ng mga farmers natin, yung mga matatatang farmers, ang Liberica, hindi yan nagkukumpol-kumpol. So that explains why Liberica do not have clustered fruits or cherries. So what about the size of the fruits? The sizes of Arabica, Robusta, and Excelsa are smaller, much smaller than the size of the fruits of Liberica. Okay, so I think when we are presented with a particular plant na merong leaves, na merong flowers, at the same time meron din siyang fruits, it's very easy to distinguish Arabica and Robusta. And also because many literatures and many seminars, many talks are presented to distinguish Excelsa, Robusta, and Arabica. So I think it is very important for me to discuss paano ba natin ma-identify ano nga ba ang Excelsa, ano nga ba ang Liberica. Kasi kalimitan po, meron pong mga away na nangyayari po dito. For example, there are so many coffee sold in the market. Tapos nakalagay doon, Kapeng Barako, Liberica. So there is this premium value associated with Liberica. Kasi nga po, although wala pa po talaga, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen or encountered any cup profile distinguishing the Liberica and Excelsa. So, kaya po sabi ko, I think it's really important to present our audience how do we classify or how do we differentiate si Excelsa at saka si Liberica. Also, we need to take into consideration that our coffee in the Philippines are not wild. They have been introduced to us. And sometimes, ito yung medyo problema. Kasi, ang Excelsa and Liberica are highly cross-pollinated. So, pag sinabi nating cross-pollinated, kapag siya ay namunga, iba na yung magiging traits ng bunga niya compared to the parent tree. So, that's why mapapansin po natin na merong mga combination of traits ng Excelsa and Liberica in a particular tree. However, based on literature and also I actually tried communicating with scientists working on this. For example, the director for Key Botanical Garden, nag-uusap po kami and I'm asking, ano po ba ito? Ano po ba Excelsa? What is Liberica? And so on. And also, even from CRAD France, there are researchers from CRAD France and IRD France. I also consulted them like Neurot and of course David Indiahe, I should say, who used to work in CRAD France. And the most discriminating trait in Excelsa and Liberica is the number of inflorescence. So the number of inflorescence, although napakahirap po natin tong makita kasi ang kape nga po ay once a year lang siya namumulaklak. So of course, our farmers would have difficulty looking at it. That's why they often focus on the fruits. Kung yung fruits ba nila ay nagka-cluster or hindi. So, but nonetheless, the number of inflorescence of Liberica is very low while that of Excelsa is very high. And when we look at the clustering of fruits, yung fruits ng Liberica are not clustered, but they appear singly along the branch of coffee, while Excelsa is highly clustering. And then the second highly discriminating trait is the shape or the index, whether the leaf is narrow or the leaf is broad. So, Liberica has a very narrow leaf, while Excelsa has a very broad leaf. And third discriminating trait is the size of the cherries or the fruits. Napakalaki po talaga ng fruits ng Liberica compared to Excelsa. In fact, meron po kaming mga Liberica whose fruits are even bigger than 5 peso coin. Yung 5 peso na luma, yung brown or yung gold. So, ayun po. So, again, the most discriminating traits that we need to look at Excelsa and Liberica are the number of inflorescence, and that would tell us the clustering of the fruits. And then second is the leaf shape index. And then third is the size of the fruits or the cherries. So, of course, we need to say that both leaves of Excelsa and Liberica are upright, and the leaves are the leaf margin are non-wavy or entire. So actually, we tried, we entered our data in a computer and we ran that through NPCs. Ito po yung software that would tell us yung clustering ng ating mga samples. And we were so happy because with the data, considering the discriminating traits that we use, we found out in our dendrogram that Excelsa, Liberica, Robusta are separated by the traits that by the traits na na-discuss ko po kanina. So because of this, since we know that, or we ascertain that the traits we use are highly discriminating and effective in classifying our coffee, we develop a key to identification of cultivated coffee. I hope this is still visible sa inyo pong mga screens. So, ito po ay, nung high school tayo, ginagamit po natin ito sa basic biology, yung dichotomous key na sinasabi. However, our dichotomous key is not that technical. Kasi, yun nga po, since our audience is very diverse and hindi naman po lahat ay biologists. So, paano po ba natin gagamitin yung identification key? So, first, let's look at the traits na sinasabi sa number 1. And it depends on what is the direction, kung ano yung sasabihin niya dito sa nasa right. For example, we have a plant. Tignan po natin kung yung leaves ba niya ay drooping, pabagsak ba sila, or wavy. If that is so, you go to number 2. And then ano ba yung sasabi ni number 2? Kung yung leaves niya ay drooping, wavy, and vertical, then you are sure that your coffee is Coffea canephora or robusta. On the other hand, if your leaves are drooping, wavy, pero oblique or slanting, you need to go to number 3. So, ang sabi ni number 3, yung leaves mo ba ay glossy, semi-coriaceous, or siya ba ay leathery? If yes, you go to number 4. Malalaki ba yung leaves niya? Then, it's Coffea canephora or robusta. Or, if the leaves are small, then that plant is Arabica or Coffea arabica. Ganun lang po yon. Now, we'll try to look at, dito po, balik po tayo sa number 1. Leaves are upright, not wavy. Sabi po niya, go to number 5. So, we'll go to number 5. So, in number 5, it says, leaves niya ay drooping, leaves niya ay upright and non-wavy. Yung fruits ba niya ay big? If it's big, then you go to number 6. Yung leaves ba niya ay narrow? You go to number 7. And are the fruit clustered or not? If it's clustered, then it's Coffea liberica, variety Duevray, or ito po yung excelsa. Pero if the fruits are small and not clustered, then it's liberica, Coffea liberica, variety Duevray. So, ganun lang po siya kadali. But I need to point out that when the fruits are big, pero highly clustered, kailangan po nating balikan yung inflorescence. Kasi po, sometimes, dahil po masyadong malalaki yung kanyang fruits, akala natin highly clustering yung ating mga fruits. But in fact, pag titignan natin yung number of inflorescence, konti lang pala. So generally, big fruits appear to be clustering. Para siyang nagka-cluster kasi masyado pong malalaki yung mga fruits niya, nag-overlap po. But in reality, they are not, the number of inflorescence is very low. So, ganun lang po siya kadali. So, if we are to apply this dichotomous key, actually po ito, ginagamit po natin, there's been a series of training sa ating pong mga plant material inspectors for coffee, dito po sa Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao last year. And we used this in the field. And the feedback is that it was really very effective. So tignan po natin itong slide na to. We have a plant on the other side. It's one of our accessions in the field. So kung titignan natin, what can you see? What can you say about the leaves? Are they drooping or wavy, or the leaves are upright and not wavy? So kung titignan po natin, the leaves are upright, pataas po silang lahat, and hindi po wavy ang kanyang mga dahon. So if that is so, let's go to number 5. Sa number 5, sabi niya, big ba yung fruits niya? Actually, ito po yung kanyang fruits, but actually hindi po sila big, maliliit po sila. So the fruits are small. Let's go to number 6. So in number 6, are the leaves broad or narrow? The leaves are very broad. Let's go to number 7. And are the fruits clustered? So, hinighlight ko po itong part na to, itong fruit na to, just to say kung clustering or not clustering yung ating mga fruits. And we can see that the fruits are not clustered in the nodes of the coffee plant. So therefore, this plant is considered as, wala pala akong audience, wala pala akong kausap sa harap ko. So it's Coffea liberica variety, Duivray or excelsa. Yun. So what about this one? This is another accession of coffee in our field. So the leaves are upright, not wavy. You go to number 5. The fruits are big. Ito po yung malaki kaninang fruits na pinapakita ko sa inyo. You go to big fruits. You go to number 6. Are the leaves broad or narrow? As you can see, the leaves are very narrow. So let's go to number 7. The fruits, mapapansin po natin, they appear singly. Hindi sila nagka-cluster. So this is Coffea liberica variety liberica. So ito po yung NCRDEC liberica po, parent tree po na nasa NCRDEC. Ayun. So what about this one? So halatang halata, ano po? The leaves are drooping, tapos wavy yung leaves, kitang-kita na very wavy yung kanyang margin. Let's go to number 2. So, ang leaves ba niya ay vertically drooping or pa-slanting? So, yung kanyang drooping ay oblique or slanting. Let's go to number 3. Glossy or non-glossy? Hindi siya glossy. So, you go to number 4. Are the leaves big? Yes, they are bigger than kesa yung isang Arabica. Thus, this one is Coffea canephora or robusta. In fact, this is FRT48, one of the registered varieties of Nestle. Ayan. And lastly, okay, ito po ay Arabica. Pabagsak po yung leaves nila, but they are oblique. So, tapos yung leaves are leathery. Kita nyo po yun. Halatang halata na leathery yung kanyang leaves. And of course, maliit po yung kanyang mga dahon. So this is the Mundo Novo taken from Benguet State University. So it's Arabica. Ayun po. So, meron ba akong kalimutan? So I think it's almost, anong oras na po ba? 11:14. Yeah. This ends my presentation, I guess, on identification and classification of commercially cultivated coffee in the Philippines. And again, we know that research is indispensable in creating new knowledge as well as validating existing ones. So marami pong salamat. Here are the teams that are doing this. We have, of course, Mawel Villanueva and Jermaine. And I have 2 advisees who work with me 2 years ago. So marami pong salamat and I hope I was able to impart something significant po sa inyo. Thank you po. Ayun.
Dr. Miriam, thank you very much po for that informative presentation, ma'am, no? So I remember 4 months ago or 5 months ago, may nilapit akong student kay ma'am, technical advice ko sa college, no? And her topic kasi is the internationalization of the Philippine coffee, ma'am, no? So, Dr. Miriam, do you remember her, the student that I invited to attend to your seminar? So, she gave me a feedback that you have shared a lot of information. She was overwhelmed and eager to do her research with regards to the public policy of coffee. So, Dr. Miriam, thank you. And to our participants with us today, we just have to take a short break, no? Before proceeding to our question and answer portion. But for now, I would like to acknowledge first some CDSU individuals who are with us today. First, Dr. Ruel M. Mojica, our Vice President for Research and Extension, is watching via Facebook live streaming, as well as Dr. Yoli Ilagan, our Research Center Director, together with Dr. Lilibet Revisio, our Director from the Extension Services, as well as, yes, my former boss, Dr. Teddy Tempora. Hi, sir. Hi, Doc. Dr. Teddy, I'm aware that Dr. Teddy is currently conducting his research with regards to coffee. Hello po, sir. Mabuhay po kayo. So for now, you could still send some questions. We're still accepting questions or clarifications if you do have. And we'll get back to you shortly. Take time to go to the restroom, grab some biscuits, coffee. Yes, have a coffee.
Ako din.
With a brand, coffee break. Ma'am, you do have as well. Hello again, participants. Now, again. We'd like also to acknowledge, Dr. Bettina Joyce Dinagan from the College of Arts and Sciences. She's with us today via Facebook live streaming. And also, one of our participants in the South from the University of Mindanao. Hello, sir. So now, for the question and answer portion, yes. We have a question from Miss Lily Jane Supena from UP Open University. Dr. Miriam, can you hear me?
Yes po.
Yes, ma'am, thanks. So, ma'am, she's asking, Dr. Miriam, Miss
Apo.
Supena is asking, as a budding entrepreneur and a development communication student, how can I be of more help promoting Philippine coffee varieties?
Okay. Parang pang Miss Universe ata yung tanong na yun.
Yes.
Okay, so how can I be of help in promoting coffee varieties? I think the best answer is to start it right. So itama po natin yung mga pinaniniwalaan po natin na partly true at hindi tama. For example, when we say coffee varieties, as I have said sa aking talk, hindi po Arabica, Robusta, Liberica, and Excelsa. Okay lang po yun kasi ako din po naman ay dati pong, yun din po yung aking mga sinasabi sa introduction sa aking mga, even my scientific papers. There are 4 varieties of coffee in the Philippines: Arabica, Robusta, Excelsa, and Liberica. So, I think the best answer to that is start it right. Ayun po. Nasagot ka po
Thank
ba?
you, ma'am.
Okay.
I hope nasagot yung Q&A portion. Yeah. Meron pa tayo, ma'am. So, unahin muna natin yung mga medyo light questions kasi meron din tayong mga technical questions later. No?
Okay.
So, Miss Ngabit, what coffee species yeah, what
May-
coffee,
may S
which
po yun,
coffee
kahit
species,
is-
yes, which coffee species is sustainable in our locality, ma'am?
Taga saan po ba sila, sir?
Miss Ngabit is asking as an employee of Quirino State University.
Okay. So, from Region 2, Cagayan Valley. Since ako po ay taga Tugigaraw, Cagayan, so I know that it's a valley. Wala pong mataas na lugar sa Cagayan Valley. So, the elevation is very low. Definitely, Arabica will not produce that much in the lowland elevation. So, Robusta, Excelsa, and Liberica would thrive in Cagayan Valley. Ayun. Ayun po.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope the question is answered. From Miss Erica Nuestro, here from CVSU, one of our colleagues. She's asking, ma'am, what is the type of coffee commonly grown in the country, so in the national level, ma'am, as a whole?
Okay, so if we are to look at the statistics of Philippine statistics, what is it? Okay, so PSA, so we can see that Robusta is the dominant kind or type of coffee grown in the Philippines. Approximately, it's around 78%. Kasi po ang Philippines, since it's a tropical country, hindi po masyadong, konti lamang po yung naitatanim na Arabica because they are most productive in high elevation. So we have around 78% for Robusta and around 23% for Arabica, which are grown in Mindanao, some parts of Mindanao, in Benguet, in Cordillera regions, and sa mga matataas na lugar. So sa Excelsa naman, karamihan po ay nandito sa Region 4. And yung Liberica, I'm not really sure about the statistics on the 1% of Liberica because I know that many farmers really are not capacitated to distinguish which is Liberica, which is Excelsa. Oftentimes, yung mga nabibisita po naming farms, yung halimbawa sabihin nila farm ng Liberica. But in that farm, may mga kailan-ilan lang na Liberica. Most of them are actually Excelsa. So, in other words, most of our production is Robusta, and then Arabica, at saka Excelsa and Liberica. Ayun. Ayun.
Thank you, ma'am. So another question, ma'am, from Miss Jeneline Sioko. Dito naman daw, ma'am, sa Cavite, no? What kind of soil is best for cultivating coffee beans? And in addition to that, where is the best place in Cavite to start farming coffee, no? Because we've been hearing Amadeo is the coffee capital of Cavite. So let us give insights to our participants now.
Opo. So, pasensya na po, hindi po ako agriculturist. Hindi po talaga ako agriculturist. And hindi rin po ako talaga immersed in coffee farming po talaga. So, pasensya na po, but I will ask our colleagues sa center and probably i-text po namin, i-message po namin kayo personally on the specific soil requirements. But I wanted to say na NCRDEC has developed a suitability map, okay, considering the elevation and soil requirements of coffee from all over the Philippines. So actually, this is up to the sitio level. Madidetermine po natin kung ano po yung nutrient requirement at saka yung types of coffee that can be grown in a particular area. So, kay ma'am po na nagtanong, specifically on the soil requirements, hindi ko po talaga alam yun because I'm not really an agriculturist. So, tatanong ko po sa ating colleagues po who is really familiar with it and isi-send po namin sa inyo. Ayun.
Ma'am, thank you for the assistance, no, although na hindi nabigyan natin ng answer to that question, but you're still with the help of your network, Dr. Miriam, you're still willing to extend to be able to provide an answer to the question of one of our participants. Thank you, ma'am. Another question, ma'am, from Mr. Carl Dumaya. It's kind of similar to the question, but I will ask again. How location of the farm affects the variety and taste of the coffee? And in addition to that, what variety of coffee is the most bitter? Yung pinakamatapang, ma'am.
Okay, so I think talagang na-impregnate na sa atin no, yung variety of coffee, yung Arabica, Robusta, Excelsa, and Liberica. Again, hindi po ito mga varieties ng coffee, but these are types of coffee, cultivated coffee. So, with regards to the environment, how does it affect yung cup profiles ng coffee? Actually, napakalaki. Kung mapapansin nyo po, meron po tayong nakikita po natin sa market yung tinatawag na single origin. So, the reason why what do you call this, businessmen brag about the single origin sa kanilang mga coffee is that para ma-standardize, at least standardize yung cup profiles ng kanilang mga ibinebenta ng kape. Kasi any change doon sa micro-environment ng coffee, that's also known as the terroir, spelled as terroir. So it's the terroir, the micro-environment of the plant, it would affect yung cup profiles ng coffee. So malaki po, napaka-komplikado po ng cup profiles ng coffee. In fact, there are more than 100 compounds that would dictate kung ano yung cup profile ng isang tasa ng coffee. So, ayun.
Yes, ma'am. We still have more speakers coming, and there are more questions, ma'am. Two more questions. For the one from Miss Maricel Ramos. She's asking, ma'am, ano po yung pinakamatagal na coffee variety sa field? Jinbang nyo. So dito po sa atin, ma'am, sa university. And another thing, ma'am, another follow-up question niya. Do you conduct trainings for plant genetic resources? What are the requirements if we do conduct? That's it, ma'am.
Okay po. So unahin ko po yung conduct of training. Wala po kaming formal training on genetic resources conservation and management, especially nowadays with the situation that we have. But of course, we are very much willing to give you assistance kahit po online. You can always contact us. So you have our number. If you have questions about conservation of genetic resources, then as long as alam po namin, we are very much willing to help you po. So, wala lang po tayong formal training po on that. And yung pangalawa, how old na yung gene bank natin? Okay. So, how old yung three varieties na naman, no? How old na yung, we call them accession kasi not until we found na stable, unique, and distinct yung isang collection po natin, we don't consider it as variety, but we consider it as accession. Okay, so we have accession numbers. So, ang pinakamatagal na, I think, meron po kaming matandang-matanda ng kape that probably it's more than 50 years old na ito po ay Excelsa. Excelsa po. Ayun po.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing our our coffee capabilities here in the university and some information. Another question, ma'am, from Mr. Jeffrey Abila. Mr. Jeffrey Abila is from Kabalan Group of Companies. Is asking, ma'am, nalalaman po ba, ma'am, if anong class or variety ng coffee kapag in powder form po na po siya? Or fine powder po.
Okay.
That's it.
Siguro, sasabihin ko na rin po, we are actually, we have a newly approved project po. Nag-start po noong January, which is funded by the Department of Agriculture Biotech Program. So that is known as the coffee forensics. So the aim is to determine yung authenticity ng coffee sold in the market. So if we are to look at the ground coffee lang, there's no way that we can say na ito po ay Arabica, Robusta, Excelsa, or Liberica. So one way to do that, of course, merong chemistry, may chem way, may biochemical way, may metabolomics way. But in our case, we are using a DNA base of authenticating coffee sold in the market. So malalaman po natin kung siya ba ay totoong Arabica or baka nahaluan siya ng Robusta. Kasi ang Arabica masyado pong mahal compared to sa Robusta. Or yung Liberica ba, yung kapeng barako Liberica na sinasabi nila, naka-label dun sa pouch, ay totoong Liberica. Yung ganun po. Kung siya ay authentic, adulterated, or may filler. When we say filler, minsan may mga kasamang roasted corn, roasted soybeans, roasted rice. So we can also determine if merong mga fillers, kung merong mga ibang plants that have been nakasama doon sa ground of coffee. Ayun po.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for responding to the question of our participants as well as sharing the current breakthrough, ma'am, no, sa coffee research. And then our one final question coming from one participant coming from Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Her name is Miss Juniora Blessy Ann. Sorry po. From Miss Juliana Paga. She's asking, ma'am, nauungusan na ba ng 3-in-1 na produkto ang purong kape? I think you have conducted this yun nga, sa seminar na inatid ng student ko. Sige, ma'am, kindly share po.
Yes, hindi ko lang naipakita yung slide, but unfortunately, we are the #1 importer of soluble coffee. Since early 2000 until last year, we are the top importer of soluble or instant coffee. Ayun po, totoo pong naungusan. Kaya po, maganda po magsama-sama po talaga tayo na sabihin natin there's more to coffee. Kasi we know that, of course, instant coffee, we're prepared very instant. Hindi naman. We're prepared, we're processed, chemically processed. And of course, the health risk associated with it. So, let's drink brewed coffee. Hindi po kapeng barako, but nilagang kape or brewed coffee. Ayun po, totoo pong nauungusan na tayo ng 3-in-1 or instant coffee. Ayun.
Thank you, ma'am, for catering to the questions of our participants, Dr. Yam. We are so grateful with you. Kahit po work from home kayo and other participants. So now, to our participants on our Facebook live streaming, not only to the Webex, do you still have questions to ask for our speaker? Wala na po. Okay. So seeing none, Dr. Miriam Baltazar, your talk or lecture with regards to the identification and characterization of coffee varieties, no, has been effective and insightful, informative to everyone. Muling-muli po, maraming salamat, ma'am. So, yeah, you may stay or leave in our meeting. It's your choice po.
Opo.
So now,
thank you so much.
Yes po. So now, ma'am, we're going to the second to the last part of our activity, which is about what? Activity evaluation. Yay! Activity evaluation. So on this part of our webinar series, you may see on your screen a QR code. So you may use your mobile phone devices and access your camera. So there is a part of your camera. Yeah, I think it's a mode, right? It's one of the modes of your camera. It's QR scanner. It's a QR scanner. So that QR code will lead you to the evaluation form which will you fill out in order to receive the certificate real time. Yes, you will get the certificate real time right after you fill out and or accomplish the said evaluation, our dear participants. So yes, the instruction is indicated on your screen. Please take note that a certificate will be sent to your email once you have submitted the evaluation form. So if there are some participants experiencing technical difficulty in accessing, kindly tell it to us so that we could address your concern. Of course, you could reach us on our email, so we could send you the link if you're having a problem. For us to know if you have received the certificates, your certificate to your email, to your respective email, could you send a like button or a message in our chat box, whether in Facebook live streaming or here in Cisco Webex if you have received the certificate. Again, if you are having a hard time accessing the QR code that will lead you to the evaluation form, you could email us to the information we provided at the start of this webinar, so we could still send you the link of the evaluation form. So we could send you it later in this afternoon. Yes, there There's several participants who are messaging me privately. Of course, our technical staff here will be attending to your concern. To those who have succeeded, of course, we in accomplishing our evaluation forms, I would like to promote a part of one of the activities of the center. If of course there are some participants here who are researchers, extension practitioners, not only instructors. No, we would like to promote everyone to submit articles with regards to the with regards to everything under the sun, with regards to coffee research, public policy of coffee, and then whether it's in the discipline of social sciences, not only limited to the natural sciences, of course. The title of the said journal is Philippine Coffee Journal, and we accept submissions on a rolling basis. The information with regards to the procedures on how you are going to submit in the Philippine Coffee Journal is indicated on located in the NCRDEC Facebook page. Yes, seeing everyone have received their certificates, we will now proceed to introducing the next topic of our coffee webinar series, coffee break series. Because yes, there are some participants who are asking if we will be having upcoming activities. And there it is. The title is Building Up the Chemistry, Investigating the Science Behind Coffee Processing, which will be conducted on August 13, Thursday, at the same time, 10 o'clock to 12 noon. And the speaker will be Dr. Ruel M. Mojica, Professor 6, our University Vice President for Research and Extension. So again, I would like to invite everyone, not only the existing participants, but as well as if you know somebody who are not only coffee enthusiasts, but as well as anyone who would be benefited from these sessions, coffee series. Stay updated. We will post the registration details on the National Coffee Research, Extension and Development Facebook page with regards to the registration link. Again, on behalf of the National Coffee, on behalf of NCRDEC, Director Jerry M. Castillo sends his regards to everyone who participated. Thank you very much. You can watch the replay of this webinar session on YouTube. It's already available. Again, please subscribe. Of course, promoting the education of coffee. Thank you. Send your virtual applause, everyone.